and welcome to Sober Bliss with me, Gail. And today I'm super, super excited because I have the lovely Clare Pooley with me. Hi, Clare.
Hello, Gail. Hello, everybody.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to me today. Obviously, all of my readers and viewers will know who you are, but just in case somebody's been living in a cave for 5 years or something, can you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and your sober journey?
Of course. It feels quite funny doing this sort of thing for me still, because for years I just blogged under a pseudonym and nobody knew who I was, and I was terribly nervous about anybody finding out it was me. And I used the pseudonym Sober Mummy, and I set up a blog called Mummy Was a Secret Drinker. And that was 3.5 years ago now, so time flies. But I set the blog up on the day I quit drinking, and which is amazing actually, because I'm quite the technophobe, so I still have no idea how I managed to work out how to do it, and I couldn't ask anybody because I didn't want anyone to know it was me. So yes, I set that blog up, and I blogged every day for at least a year. I blog less frequently now, but for the first year, every day. And then at the end of that year, I thought maybe I should try and turn the story of that year into a book. So I published a book called The Sober Diaries, and that was published nearly a year ago. And actually, yeah, December the 28th, and this December the paperback is coming out, which is really exciting. So, so cheaper, which is great. So that's me. And now, actually, I loved writing so much. It was a sort of passion that I rediscovered when I started blogging, that I've now written a novel, and the novel is coming out in, it takes ages, about 18 months.
Really?
So,
wow. Can you give us a little hint to what it's about?
Yeah, I mean, the title is still under debate. So, but at the moment it's called The Authenticity Project. And it's all about the fact that everybody lies about their lives, and what would happen if you decided to tell the truth instead. So you can see it was inspired by my own life.
Yeah.
So it's an uplifting story about people who meet each other through a notebook in which they all tell the truth about their lives, and then they meet each other and change each other's futures in extraordinary ways. So
wow. Oh, I'm so excited. Can't wait till it comes out.
Thank you.
I have your Sober Diaries, as you can probably see.
Oh, I can see it.
Yeah. And it really inspired me on my own.
Oh, I just realised that's my daughter's footprint.
Oh, lovely. So it was 3.5 years ago when you first quit and started your blog.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I remember reading the first entry, and I think you wrote, Mummy was a secret drinker up until 3 days ago. And at the time, I thought, wow, 3 days, that must be so amazing not to drink for 3 whole days. But here you are, 3 years later.
I know, time flies.
Doesn't it?
Actually, it does now. It didn't back then. You know, time back then dragged very, very slowly. So one day, you remember one day felt like a year almost, but now it zips past.
It does. You're right. So I wanted to chat to you about something which I'm not that familiar with, because I live in a really small village in southern Spain. And although there's loads of bars, my village is, I think, about 1,100 full-time people, and we've got 8 bars, which are open between themselves 24 hours a day, which is crazy. But I don't really go to bars that much. My social life, certainly this summer, has been going to Spanish rock concerts and outdoor events. So I'm not like...
It's much more exciting.
Yeah. But I'm not like a restaurant person, or I don't go to bars and things like that. So I would really love it if you could talk to us about what it's like to socialize sober in, the normal sense of the word socializing. And why do you think that we're so terrified when we have to do our first social event when we're not drinking?
Okay, well, it was one of the things that I was most worried about, and I think a lot of people are most worried about, because, when I quit, apart from, my pregnancies, it was about, let me think, um, 20 years since I'd been to a party without a drink. And, for me, it was completely intrinsic to having fun and relaxing. And I just, I just couldn't remember what it was like to that sort of thing without a drink in my hand. And and we forget that, you look at children and they have a perfectly good time at parties without alcohol, and but we train our brains to believe that it's impossible to socialize without a drink. So I was really, really nervous about it. And you know and I think, firstly, that is perfectly normal. And secondly, I mean, I can really reassure everybody that you will get to the point where parties are just as much fun, and actually a lot more fun. But it takes a bit of adjusting, because if you think about the fact that you've spent, if you're the same age as me, you spent 20 years socializing with alcohol, it's bound to take a few months to get used to socializing without alcohol. And I'm not going to lie, I mean, the truth is, the first few months it's not easy, and it feels really weird. And don't panic if you're at the stage where you're going to parties and it's really hard. Don't worry, it won't be like that forever, but it is like that to start off with.
Yeah. What was your first social event that you did sober, if you can remember?
I think it was probably dinner at yes, it was dinner at with some friends at their house. And I remember it actually quite vividly, because I learned quite a lot that evening. To start with, I realized that people don't drink as much as I thought they did, because when you're not drinking, you watch everybody else is drinking, and I became quite obsessed for the first few months about how much everybody else drank. And I realized that, for years I've been turning up at parties having already drunk half a bottle of wine, because I would drink while I was getting changed. I drink sort of, as a sharpener, I think sort of, I thought everyone did that. I thought everybody drank before they went to a party, and they don't.
I did.
I remember turning up at that dinner thinking, God, everyone's really sober. And it struck me that because I'd just never noticed that before, and I'd never noticed the fact that other people, some people drink as much as I did, but a lot of people don't. So that was a bit of a revelation that first evening. But initially, when I first started going to parties, I found the main thing I felt was really scratchy. So when you feel like you just can't quite relax, and you just feel very heavy, and you feel like you're on a slightly different, a parallel universe from everybody else. And that's because we're, drinkers are normally very sociable people. We're very garrulous. We like to be part of the crowd. It's part of the reason, I think, why we started drinking in the first place. And really difficult feeling like you're not part of the crowd and everybody else is on a slightly different level from you. And that's what I remember from those early days, is feeling just edgy and disconnected. And as I said, don't worry, that doesn't last. But it does last a while.
Yeah, I remember feeling like I stood out like a sore thumb. I mean, I kind of did anyway, because most of the people I socialized with were Spanish people. So as an English person, you kind of already the odd one out. But the fact that I was stood there and I wasn't drinking, I did feel that everybody noticed that I wasn't drinking. And, you feel a bit odd.
Yeah, what really, really helps there is having a drink in your hand that looks like a grown-up drink. So one party I went to, I wrote about in my book, I turned up and the only non-alcoholic drinks available were just plain tap water or sticky orange juice. And the orange just sort of shouted out non-drinker, and nobody, you didn't want to drink loads of orange juice in the evening. It's sort of, so it was just miserable. And what I started doing, if I wasn't convinced that they would have something there that at whatever party I was going to that I wanted to drink, I just take my own, and and I'd take something that looked like an alcoholic drink. So alcohol-free beer was a lifesaver for me. Seedlip and tonic, or just fizzy water, even with lime in. As long as you've got something in your hand that looks like it, makes you feel like you're drinking a proper drink, then it makes it much, much easier than standing without anything to hold, or holding something that's obvious, like a Coca-Cola, that is obviously not a drink. Because then you get people asking you questions that you probably don't want to answer at that point, so
that's true.
And there's plenty of time to tell people that you're not drinking, but at the beginning you probably don't want to have that conversation, and if you don't, then you have to.
Yeah. What's your favorite non-alcoholic drink now then, when you're out of an evening?
Well, if you read my book, you know that I talked a lot about Beck's Blue alcohol. Yeah. And I have to tell you that I thought maybe when the book came out, Beck's Blue would contact me and say, "Oh, thank you so much for mentioning our brand and have some free Beck's Blue," but they've never done it. And I still drink alcohol-free beer, which actually is fantastic. It's low calorie. It's actually quite healthy. It's not filled with preservatives and colorings, and it feels like a grown-up drink. But I also love Seedlip, which is, like, if you haven't come across it, it's an alcohol-free spirit. Tastes a bit like, and I drink that with Fever Tree tonic and ice and lime or something, and that's again, it just feels like a proper grown-up drink. And it helps that I was never a spirits drinker, and I was never a beer drinker. I drank wine, lots of wine. So I don't feel that beer, alcohol-free beer and alcohol-free spirits don't make me feel like I want to have the real thing. Alcohol-free wine I couldn't drink for quite a long time because it made me crave the real thing. So I think you just have to know what works for you, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point. I drink alcohol-free beer as well, and in fact there's a really good one in our village because we're quite isolated, so there's not even coconut water where we live. But the supermarket do their own brand of alcohol-free beer, and it's really, really nice. Yeah.
And there's a Heineken Zero is really good.
All right.
And the other thing I drink, which isn't a sort of fake booze thing, is but it still again feels like an adult drink and is really healthy, is kombucha. So
yes, I've heard of that. Right. No, we can't get it.
When you do manage to find it, it's really great. And it's not too sweet. I think the problem with a lot of alcohol alternatives is that they're really sweet, and I think a lot of us have problems with a sweet tooth after we stop drinking, so you don't want to drink loads of sweet stuff as well.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. What do you think then is the best thing now about socializing sober?
You know what, I think over time the way you socialize starts to change, and the things you like about it change. So, and now when I look back, I realize actually I socialize in a very different way. So to start with, when I was drinking, the only things I really did to socialize were going to a bar, a party, or a restaurant where we'd drink loads. So all my social events revolved around drinking. And now I've stopped drinking, and I've gradually over time I realized that more and more the things that I did with friends didn't involve alcohol at all. So I go to the theatre a lot more than I used to. I go to the movies a lot more than I used to. I go to art galleries. I go to concerts. I love a good rock concert now. I do. I also go on long during the. I do a lot more socializing during the day as well. So I'm lucky enough to have a job that sort of, I can fit around whatever I'm doing. So I will often during the day meet friends for a walk with the dogs on the common, and sort of have a
Yeah.
good chat over a cup of coffee and a walk. So I think you get much more inventive about the way that you socialize, and as a result, your life becomes much richer and more varied. And when you do go to a classic party, a drinks party or something,
Mm.
I find that I do them in very different ways. So when I was drinking, I would run around a party talking to everybody for about 5 minutes at a time, and I'd probably say the same thing over and over again, and I'd not be able to remember many of those conversations. And certainly I wouldn't learn very much about them or their lives in the course of that conversation. And now when I go to a party, I will talk to far fewer people, but I'll talk to each of them for a really good length of time, and we'll have a proper life affirming chat about stuff that really matters, and I'll remember it the next day, and
Yeah.
I'll come away feeling enriched and feeling great about life and feeling like I'm a proper friend. And so I think parties are much more rewarding for me now, and actually sort of I feel terrible now looking back about all those years where I never really talked to anybody about anything that really mattered to anybody. So do you find?
Yeah, because you get kind of in your own little bubble, don't you? You go out there and you know what you want to say, and you're kind of more obsessed with getting over your own point of view and telling your story and your funny joke. That,
Yeah.
yeah, you don't listen properly
No,
to
exactly.
people.
I used to, the way I've described it is, I think I spent years on transmit rather than
Yeah.
receive. So I go to a party and I think, oh, I'm going to tell them this story. And then I tell the next person exactly the same story, because by then I was too drunk to think of a new one. And that's really how the evening went. And I come away feeling, having learned nothing about what my friends were up to, or, what mattered to them or anything.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. But do you find that the the friendships that you had in the past and the new friendships that you've made now, do you find they're deeper and more meaningful because you are present all the time?
yes, definitely. And I feel like I know more about my friends' lives. I'm much better at remembering to sort of call them up if they've got a big job interview, or take them flowers if they're not well. I'm a much better friend, I think, than I used to be. I think I was quite a selfish person when I was drinking lots. I didn't mean to be. I just,
Yeah,
just what happens. So, yeah.
yeah,
Um,
that's true.
I think early on, if you're just starting out at parties, there are a few tricks that help make it easier. So, I mean, to start with, I initially, at least, I always used to leave pretty early. And to be
Hmm.
honest, if it's difficult, there's no point in staying longer than you feel comfortable. And the great thing about drinks parties is people get drunk and they don't realize you're not there. So what I always do is, when I'm ready to leave, I leave. I don't say goodbye,
Oh,
and I just
nice.
nobody knows that I've left at midnight, or even earlier if in the early days, um, because they're focused on other things. So
Mm.
so you don't need to feel bad about not staying till 3 a.m. And the great thing is you can drive. So
Yes.
so it's not like the old days where you had to sort of, try and find a way to get home, and you'd often end up stranded at a party trying to find a mini cab or whatever.
Mm.
You can jump in your car right outside and drive yourself home as soon as it gets tricky. So
Hmm.
I think those things really help. And one thing that helps hugely is what they describe as playing the tape forward. Have you come
Yeah.
across that expression?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
playing the thumb forward. And because it's very easy at a party to think, I would feel so much better if I had just one glass of wine. I'm just going to have one. I'm not going to have another one. I'll just have one and then I'll stop.
Mm.
And you just need to play the film forward. And you know that it's not going to be one. It's
Yeah.
going to be and then it's going to be 3. And even if you only have 1 that night, you'll do it. It'll mean that next time you go to a party, you'll have 2, and the next time you go to a party, you'll have 3. And before you know where you are, you'll be right back to where you were at the beginning.
Yeah.
And you just need to remind yourself where it goes and how awful you feel the next day, and how terrible you'll feel about having broken all your resolutions. And you can also play the film forward in terms of thinking, how will I feel tomorrow if I haven't drunk? I'm going to wake up feeling brilliant. I'm going to be so proud of myself. I'm not going to have to check my phone to see who I texted. Yeah. I'm not going to have to worry about how I got home and whether I've left my handbag somewhere or any of that stuff. It's a very So thinking about how you're going to feel the next day is really helpful. And if it gets tough, just leave.
Exactly. Yeah. You haven't signed a contract that you're going to be there till the bitter end.
There's only a few months of your life in what's a really, going to be a really long and eventful and wonderful life. So if you have to spend a few months just taking it a little bit easy and not going out quite as much and not going out quite as long, then it's not the end of the world. It really isn't.
Yeah. With Christmas coming up soon, really scary. Do you have any advice for people who are, about to enter the crazy Christmas party circuit and they want to keep their promise to themselves? Any particular advice to do with that side of Christmas socializing?
I would just say that Christmas without alcohol is a really scary prospect if you've never done it before, but it tastes so much better because I remember the old days of Christmas where all those parties one after the other, you'd spend so much time feeling under par and feeling miserable. And there's Christmas is a really busy time. There's so much to do, and if you've got kids, you've got these little people who are desperate for you to make it all magical, and that's really hard when you're hungover the whole time or drunk or both. And actually, if you're not drinking, you've got so much more energy and enthusiasm for the whole thing. And what I try and do, I remember my first Christmas, I just focused on the children. I thought, I'm going to see everything through their eyes. And they don't drink, obviously, and Christmas is so magical for them. And I think it's about remembering what you loved about Christmas when you were young. And it wasn't about being boozy, it was about being with family, it was about not having work or school. It's about Father Christmas, it's about wonderful food, it's about wonderful films on the telly, all that magical stuff that you don't need booze for. So if it's your first Christmas, I would advise you to, if you've got children, look at how they do Christmas, and if you haven't, remember how you used to do Christmas.
That's good advice.
Much more than alcohol.
Yeah, this is my first sober Christmas.
Exciting.
I'm not particularly too worried about it, to be honest, because as I said, we live in the sticks, and it's really weird because Christmas in the UK, I remember it started at as soon as Halloween was over, then Christmas would start. But over here, because their big day is the
12th night,
the 6th of January, when the Three Kings come. So we don't break up from school until I think it's the 23rd of December this year, and the Christmas decorations don't go up until the 24th or something. So unlike the UK, we haven't got that big long run up to Christmas, which I think is probably the most difficult time for people when they're not drinking, or all the school plays and things, the office parties and all of that. So I haven't got that to worry about. It's just going to be the 4 of us this year, cozy in front of the fire with hopefully something nice that Santa brings. So I'm not too worried about it, but I know that it's a big issue for a lot of people. So that's really good advice.
Once you've done it once, it's easy. It's like all these things. Everything is hard the first time you do it, but the next time round it becomes much easier. And, you know, I do remember the first Christmas, the joy of waking up on Christmas Day without a hangover. It was
Yeah.
just, you know, it was really lovely because, you know, I could get as excited, you know, because the children always come in really early with their
Did you?
stockings, show you what Father Christmas bought them. And, you know, I mean, when they were little, they'd come in at 4 o'clock in the morning. And, you know, if you'd only just got to bed and you were feeling really miserable, it was not a great way to start the day. And being able
No.
to start the day, Christmas Day, with a really clear head and loads of energy and having had lots of sleep is amazing. So much
Yeah.
easier. So, mm.
Yeah. So
But yeah,
what
I think at Christmas, sorry, I'm still going on about Christmas.
that's okay.
One of the easiest times in a way not to drink, because it's about so many other things. I think
Yeah.
the most difficult time not to drink is events that totally revolve around booze, like a drinks party where there is no
Mm,
other entertainment, there is nothing else about it apart from people standing there drinking, which is a bizarre thing to do if you think about it.
it
But
is.
Christmas, you know, there's a lot more that happens at Christmas. So in a
Mm,
way, it's one of the easier times, funnily
yeah.
enough.
Yeah. I was going to ask you there actually, which type of events do you think that it would be best to avoid when you're not drinking? So the one that you've just mentioned there.
Yeah, I think in the early days, drinks parties, in a way, aren't so bad because often you're not expected to stay very long. So you
Mm-hmm.
know, if you're going to do a party that is only about the booze, just go in and out. You know, just fly
Right.
by. You know, talk to the people you want to talk to and then leave. But otherwise, I think it's best to try and go to events early on where there's something else going on. So dancing, or and it is possible to dance without drinking. I learned, although actually, one word of warning, if this is new to you, sober dancing, is be careful about your feet. Because when I was drinking, I used to wear ridiculous heels and dance in heels for hours at a time, and my feet kill me. You
Yeah.
know, when I stopped drinking, I realized that it was only the anesthetic effects of the booze that
Mm.
allowed me to carry on dancing for so long in heels. So if you're dancing sober, wear sensible shoes. That's my advice. Or take your shoes off halfway through.
Yeah. That's brilliant advice. Do you have any last words of wisdom then before we go, for people who are maybe thinking about giving up drinking or who are brand new to the sober life?
Um, yeah, I think just a general piece of advice, which is if you if you go into the whole journey feeling like you're missing out on something and life is going to be utterly miserable, it's really hard to keep going because you feel
Mm.
like you're constantly denying yourself. And I think the more you can go into it with feeling excited about,
Yeah.
you know, what life is going to have to offer, and remind yourself constantly about all the things that are going to be so much better. And you
Mm.
remember, you're not doing this because you have to, you're doing this because you choose to, because it's a much better way of living your life. Then, you know, then the whole thing is so much easier. And something I did in the early days, and I still do now, is I bought a pin board, and I stuck pictures on the pin board of all the things I wanted my life to be like, without alcohol, over the next few years. And I put pictures of places I want to visit. I put pictures of how I wanted to look. Put pictures of how I wanted to feel, and some of the things I wanted to buy with the money I was saving. And I put them all on a board, and I put the board in my bedroom near my bed. So every day I see it, and it reminds
Mm.
of the things I wanted to achieve. And the amazing thing is, almost everything on there I've now done. And
Wow.
there's a couple of things. There's a picture of New York, haven't got there yet, but you know, but it's you know, it works, and it just keeps you focused on why you're doing this, and you're doing it for really positive reasons. um, uh,
Exactly.
you know, because it will change your life in the more fundamental ways than anything you've ever done before.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I wholeheartedly agree. That's brilliant advice. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you. It's been great chatting.
Yes, and if anybody hasn't yet seen Claire's website, it's Mummy Was a Secret Drinker. So check that out. Also, the Sober Mummy Facebook page. You can check that out too. And if you want to keep up to date with me and more lovely people that I'm going to chat to and get some helpful advice on what it's like to live a sober life, then sign up to the newsletter at soberbliss.com. I will put all of the links and the information down below. So thank you so much for watching, and thank you, Claire, so much for joining me. And I'll
Thank you.
see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.